Shabbat, Perek Aleph, Mishnah Bet. Second Mishnah in the first chapter of Masechet Shabbat. So this Mishnah is going to talk about things that are actually not related to Shabbat at all, because in the next Mishnah we're going to say what you shouldn't do before you go right before Shabbat, as you prepare on Erev Shabbat. So for some reason the Mishnah thought actually the Bartanura writes, Mishum debai lemitne, because we're going to learn in the next Mishnah, Lo yetzeh chayat b'machto, that the tailor shouldn't go out with his needle, Shema yishkach v'yetzeh. Okay, maybe he'll forget and go out, i.e. carry. Okay, etc., etc. It's dummy. It's similar to Lo yeshev lifnei hasapar samuch mincha. It's very similar to the case that we're going to learn that a person shouldn't take a haircut right before mincha. And that's what we're going to start with in our Mishnah. These are a number of things that a person shouldn't do. Because they might prevent him from forgetting to do that which we should do, which is daven mincha. Okay, so let's just, in order as way of introduction, we're just going to remember from Masechet Brachot. This is actually from this Masechta. Okay, Masechet Brachot. The day is divided into 12 hours, assuming that sunrise is here. This is 6 a.m. on a classic day. This is the way we divide it: 6 a.m. and this is 6 p.m. So here's noon. I don't have all the times, but you understand. That's the classic day. It's 12 sha'ot zmaniyot, time-bound hours. And for our purposes, what we really need here, we don't need this. That's not important for us. What we really need here is this idea there's something called minchah gedola. Minchah gedola is in the 7th hour. It's 6.5 hours. It's at 12:30 on your classic day. Exactly 6.5 hours into the day. Okay, that's minchah gedola. That's when they first will be able to bring the korbanot, the korban tamid shel bein ha'arbaim, the afternoon korban in the Beit HaMikdash. Then there's something called mincha ketana. Mincha ketana is at 9.5 hours, teisha v'chesi sha'ot, at 15:30, or for those of you outside of Israel, for those of you in America, it's at 3:30 in the afternoon. Okay, so you have mincha gedola, and normally, by the way, nowadays, that's when you can start davening mincha, and then there's mincha ketana, which is 9.5 hours. Okay, so that's enough for our purposes. So the Mishnah says, Lo yeshev adam lifnei hasapar, samuch lemincha ad sheyitpalel. If you haven't davened mincha yet, a person shouldn't sit. Lifnei hasapar means in front of the barber. You shouldn't sit down for a haircut, samuch lemincha, until you daven. Why? And we're going to see that the reason for all of these things is because we're afraid that something's going to happen that's going to draw you in, and you're going to eventually forget to daven mincha. Similarly, lo yikanes adam lemerchas, you shouldn't enter the bathhouse. Velo laborsiki, and you shouldn't enter it's really talking about a tanner. A tanner shouldn't enter laborsiki, the tannery, to work. Velo le'echol, you shouldn't sit down to eat. Velo ladin, nor should you sit down, should a dayanim sit down to do a din. And the Bartanura explains, for all these reasons, well, the merchatz is obvious, because we're afraid when you sit down to the merchatz, shema yit alef, maybe you'll faint. It was very intense. You went to the bathhouse, they rubbed you down, they did a shvitz, maybe you'll faint, you'll miss mincha. Borsaki, he says, ibud arot, it's a place where they would tan skins. Dilma chaze pseida, maybe it's your tannery, and you'll see some loss. You're going to lose money. V'kilkul ba'orot, you're going to see some problem. Im lo yini'em mimokomam v'yitakneim, if you don't quickly fix them. V'yimshoch b'malachto ad sheta'avor onata tefillah, and you'll be engaged in your business until onata tefillah. Nor should you eat. Shema yimshoch b'seuda, maybe you'll sit down to your meal, and the meal could go on for a long time. And it's pretty clear that they had long main meals. V'lo ladin, nor should you judge. Why? Because, one second, Dilma chazu ta'ama, maybe they'll see another reason. V'yistru masher rotzim lifsok v'chozel liot chilat hadin. Because, as anybody knows, court cases can take forever. And they wouldn't break in the middle, and they would forget. So and what about hasapar? Why shouldn't you take a haircut? We'll go back to the Bartanura for a second. Gzeira shema yishaber azug. We're afraid maybe the zug means the scissors will break. Shel saparim, achar sheitchil, after you already started taking a haircut. V'tavor onat tefillah, kodem sheyitaknu. You're going to miss mincha until before they fix it. V'yashlim hatisporet. Now, which mincha are we talking about? The Bartanura says we're talking about mincha gedola. And samuch lemin, that's sheish sha'ot u'mechza, as we said. Remember, it's 6.5 hours. That's mincha gedola. So if we're talking about mincha gedola, then samuch lemincha, hanu mitchilat sha'ash v'it. Samuch lemincha is from the beginning of the 7th hour. So from the beginning of the 7th hour, after noon, once noon comes, even though you still can't daven yet, once it's noon is over, once you're into the 7th hour, wait till Zman Mincha starts, and then you can't do these things. What's unique about these things? One gets the sense that these are things that could be drawn out. Okay, I mean, there are a lot of things that people do. You can make a sale, you can run your business, you can do a lot of things, but some things seem to be drawn out. Nonetheless, the Mishnah says, "Ve'imit chilu em mafsikim." But if you already started, let's say you weren't supposed to, but let's say you started to sit down for your haircut. You don't have to stop your haircut in order to daven mincha because you have plenty of time. As you've seen, it's very interesting. It's really interesting. I would have thought, like there's a machlok in the Gemara that's talking about mincha ketana or mincha gedola. I could see we're talking about mincha ketana, but even that's 2.5 hours. Comes along the Mishnah and says, from 12 o'clock noon, don't start doing new things until you've davened mincha. And it feels like there's a sense of like mitzvah, you have a mitzvah, don't forget it. It just meant, whenever I see this Mishnah, it reminds me there's a man here, his name is Rav Saban, and he worked at the Michlala that I work in, and he was just known for, as soon as man mincha came, let's get a minyan. And it's a very big luxury in Israel, but like, you would know, like if you're working in Rehovot where his office was, like, okay, as soon as like 12:27, that's when mincha was. And it was always his way that he, as soon as it was man mincha, and it's a very important attribute, not just for davening. Let's say for benching, sometimes it's a challenge. You're in the middle of doing something. Do you bench right away? Do you forget? Mitzvah bal yadcha, mincha came, don't start doing other things. Daven mincha first, and then go to your business. Then take the client, then have the meeting, etc., etc. But v'imit chilu ein mafsikin. This Mishnah says something new. No, by the Bartanura adds all the lists of what does it mean if you started. So if you started, for example, if you start the haircut, for example, is when you put aforet shel saparim bein birkav, you put I think it really means like the cape, the barber's cape. Hu sudar. This is the sudar shenoten mikalech al birkav. He puts it on your knees, i.e. the barber's cape. And when the borsiki, the tannery, is when you put on the tannery, the apron of the tannery. And the din, interestingly, when the danim the din, mishit atfu adanim betalitam. The dayanim would put on their talit to sit in din, be'ema ubiyira. So once they put on their talit, then they already started, they don't have to stop for mincha. New thing, the Mishnah says. Mafsikin likro kriyat shema, ve'ein mafsikin litfilah. So let's look at the Bartanura for a second. This is a new thing, okay? Chaverim ha'oskim b'Torah. If there are chaverim that are studying Torah, mafsikin toratam lekriyat shema. If the time of kriyat shema came, they stopped learning for kriyat shema dizman ha'kavua, because it has a set time. But ein mafsikin litfilah. They don't stop for tfilah. Shein nazman kavua deoraita. It doesn't have a din deoraita. So the Mishnah says, if the time came for kriyat shema and you're in the middle of learning, you have to stop for kriyat shema. But if the time came for zman tefillah, then you don't have to stop learning for zman tefillah. I will just quote you the Bartanura at the very end. The Bartanura says, Lo shanu elakagon Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai v'chavirav shetoratam umanutam. It's only people like Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai and his friends that their Torah was their umanut, was their trade. That's why they wouldn't stop for Shemon Esrei. They're in the middle of learning. Aval anu, but us, ho'il va'anu mafsikin toratenu le'umanutenu. We stop our learning to go work. We stop our learning for a lot of things. To be truth be told, we stop our learning to watch YouTube videos. Kol shekein shenafsik letfilah. There's no excuse. This Mishnah is a nice idea, figuratively, but halachically you have to stop for Zman Tefillah as well. Again, we get a little long. We'll stop here. The Mishnah, I promise, if you're new to this, they're not this long all the time. We'll dedicate this learning to the memory of my father, of Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. And if you have comments or questions, email me at arspolter@gmail.com. Have a great day.